you're familiar with him. His name is Jonathan Beck, and he is a development project manager with the Alexander Company, which is a nationally recognized development firm specializing in the adaptive reuse of historic buildings, which is what we're talking about today. He has over 20 years of real estate development and investment experience, having held previous positions with the National Trust Community Investment Corporation and Baker Tilly. He's a graduate of the University of Wisconsin with a degree in real estate and urban land economics. Please welcome Jonathan Beck.
Thanks. So, when I was a kid, I grew up going to the Needham Public Library where I grew up, and I used to rent videos. One of my favorite ones was the Mike Wallace interview with Frank Lloyd Wright. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with that from 1957, but it kind of got me actually interested in architecture and real estate, and so it's kind of fun to talk about all these neat projects that I've got to work on over the years at Taliesin. I spent a lot of time out here, but never in any kind of official capacity. So anyway, so here goes. So I've been with the Alexander Company for about 17 years, but prior to that I started my career at the National Trust for Historic Preservation. I was the first hire for their for-profit subsidiary called the National Trust Community Investment Corporation. And what we used to do was, and what we still do, what they do, is they invest in, they started off doing small historic rehab projects. So old theaters with historic tax credits and new market tax credits and the like, and so I kind of cut my teeth working on a lot of projects like that. And a lot of projects and theaters are financed both with the federal historic tax credits, the state tax credit, the new market credits, and so I'm going to be going through an array of projects, and some of the theater projects that I've worked on, a couple of them were mentioned today. Our firm has been around for 40 years. I started with them in 2004. We are working on projects currently in Providence, Rhode Island, wrapping up one in North Carolina, Virginia, and then we try to do a lot in Wisconsin. These are the states that we do work in. Uh-oh. That was my bad. Sorry about that. And so, kind of what I do is we have our own architects in-house, we have our own brokers in-house, marketing, PR, all that. And so I'm a project manager, so I go out and I find these projects around the country and try to get them redeveloped. And I have to know about every different type of financial tool that's available to make these projects happen. I'm going to primarily be talking about the federal historic tax credit because that's probably the one that's going to be most useful to all of you. It's a credit that first became available in 1978, but really the credit that you recognize now, really in 1986, there was a 20% credit, and then it was reformed in 2017 to a credit that comes over 5 years. Just some fundamentals, the preservation aspects are administered by the National Park Service and the State Historic Preservation Office. The tax aspects are administered by the IRS, and then tax credits, a dollar-for-dollar reduction in tax liability. There are ways to structure, if you're a nonprofit, to bring in a tax credit investor into your transaction. They'll take the tax credits and give you money for your theater rehabilitation. So the types of buildings that qualify are you either are listed on the National Register of Historic Places or you're a contributing building within a historic district. So that's the part one. Part two, through the application process, you're going to describe, and the State Historic Preservation Office and Park Service are going to approve the work that you're going to do. And there's a whole list of guidelines that are called Secretary of Interior Standards. And there are people in this room that can explain each one of those if you would like. Then once you do the rehabilitation, then you request and you photo document the work that was completed. let's see, types of buildings are eligible. Must be a building. Must be able to depreciate it. Oh, I did it again. I am so sorry. I'm so nervous up here. I feel like Frank Lloyd Wright's watching me and judging me. Yep. So, you know, I'm not going to go and spend too much time on these IRS rules, but if you're going to use the federal credit, you have to spend more than the adjusted basis of your property. That's the main thing. If you buy, you know, a building for $100,000, you have to put at least $100,000 into it for the federal credit. For the state of Wisconsin credit, it's $50,000. Qualified rehabilitation expenditures. It's pretty much everything that goes into the building in order to make it restored. So it's all of, you know, your hard costs. Theater seats, though, that's a tough one. Whether theater seats are an eligible qualified rehabilitation expenditure, you would not believe how much debate goes on in the IRS with that. Yeah, they're it's a tough one. But anyway, your architectural design fees, those are all qualified rehabilitation expenditures, and you multiply those all at the end of the day by 20%, and that's your tax credit. So QREs include walls, partitions, floors, ceilings, windows, doors, HVAC systems, you know, sprinkling systems, chimneys, stairs, you know, anything that you can think of that makes like the building a building. Additions don't qualify. And reasonable development fees qualify. So costs excluded, the acquisition costs, land, any enlargement would not be eligible, personal property, furniture, appliances, possibly movie theater seats, and then, yeah, new building construction and any site work. And then the credit equals 20% of those QREs, qualified rehabilitation expenditures. There's certain measuring periods when you need to get the work done. You can either choose a 24-month or a 60-month period if it's going to be a longer rehabilitation. But so the benefit is you get a 20% tax credit that you can bring in an investor, and they may pay 82 cents on the dollar, and that gives you money to complete your project. All right. So I'm not going to bore you with these different types of tax structures, but basically you have to create a limited liability company and bring that federal historic tax credit investor into your partnership. There's a nice state of Wisconsin law that if you're doing a historic theater or community space, this will not necessarily put you on the property tax rolls because you can stay a community facility. So there's been a number of groups that have used those preservation easements that the state has. So, and then you'll unwind this whole structure after the 5-year recapture period. There's more complicated tax structures. Skip that. All right, tax exempt use property. A lot of you guys might be nonprofits, and there are ways to bring a nonprofit into a limited liability company and still keep your for-profit status. You just have to be very careful and just give me a call up, or give Dinah a call and she'll get a hold of me and I'll tell you how to structure this. So, but there are ways that nonprofits can easily utilize the federal historic credit. The state of Wisconsin credit actually works as a certificate, so it doesn't really matter if you're a nonprofit or not. You can sell that certificate, and you don't need to bring the state investor into the limited liability company. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the projects that our company had worked on. This was the Appleton Fox River Mills. I grew up in Neenah, Wisconsin, and this was one of the first projects that I had seen that utilized both the federal historic tax credit and low-income credits. So this was done right in, around 1987, 88, and kind of became a poster child for our company of being able to utilize these incentives to revitalize old mills. I always work with Matt and the university and Baker Tilly on these economic impact studies that are with the state historic tax credit. So the state of Wisconsin has a 20% state credit, and we've had that since 2014. The company that I work with, we were doing lots of projects outside of the state of Wisconsin, and very little historic rehabilitation activity was happening each year. Just because of the pure cost of historic rehab. So we were going over to Iowa, the Washington, D.C. metro area, Kansas City, Missouri, and we weren't doing work in our own backyard until 2014 when we got finally a state historic tax credit. And it's been under jeopardy at times, and so we do these economic impact studies to show the catalytic impact of what happens to these areas and parts of town once these credits are made available. These are the 35 states that offer state historic tax credits. If you want to go about restoring historic theaters, these are the states that you want to go. So one of them's not enough, you got to keep doing these. They only take a half of a lifetime. So, all right. Some pictures of Loudon when Paul Ryan was going to cut the federal credit. That's when I kind of put my hand into his back pocket. I'll do it. All right, so this is the first rehab that we did with the new state credit. This is the Longfellow School. We're just going to show you some non-theater projects, but I'm just going to go really quick through these. They're cool pictures, but they're not theaters, but they're old buildings, and I know we all like old buildings. So anyway, so these are some cool apartments. Oh yeah, here's the theater. So we took the old we took the old auditorium and we made it into a kick-ass television room, and we put in theater seats. Forgot about that. So we got old lockers too. Some old wheel. So this is the Fortress. You're capped now at $3.5 million in state credits, but back in the day, we acquired this building when you could get an uncapped amount of credit, and we used $9 million in state credits on this $43 million redevelopment. It's a 200,000 square foot building. It's in Milwaukee. No, Milwaukee's not everybody's favorite city here, but we're gonna just show you some more cool pictures. There could be a hidden theater in here, but I don't think so. So this is another fun one that we worked on with the state credit, and this one utilized new market credits. This one was taken in an old powerhouse, and it's a $46 million project, $30 million capital campaign. All of these theater projects are going to need a capital campaign, and so you're going to leverage the capital campaign, and you're going to get these federal historic tax credits and state credits. And so we partnered with the Beloit College. They were a nonprofit. One of the oldest colleges in the state. From 1846, they took this former power plant and they repurposed it to an athletic facility and community facility. And I'm pretty sure there is a theater room in there. So let's get to that theater. So this is it before. These powerhouses are so difficult to find a use for. Here we got a swimming pool in there, a running track, tables, and so anyway, so that's the Beloit Powerhouse. That was project was completed last year. Our company focuses on a lot of the times former federal surplus property. I'm just going to show you some of these, types of properties that we've done around the country. We take old federal courthouses, prisons, military facilities, and so we repurpose them a lot of the time into old housing. This is a courtroom. It's kind of like a theater. So a lot of drama that unfolds, a lot of action. So this is just like find the theater in the historic building. So anyway, I totally forgot, again. So old telephone booths are always fun. So this is National Park Seminary. This was this crazy project that we did out in Washington, D.C. that took way too long during the recession. It was this elite girls finishing school that the military took over under the War Powers Act and became this convalescent hospital during World War II and was left empty during Vietnam. And we thought it would be a good idea to bring people living in here again. So, large master development. Oh, it's got an auditorium, kind of again like a theater if you put chairs in there. But just check out like the beautiful like ceilings, big community facility. But this is an area for all of our residents to enjoy. Some pictures of the historic ballroom theater. This is the condition of some of this. This is a prison. Lots of movies are about prisons. So, just trying to tie her in, guys. So we even restored the guardhouse on this one, but again, this was the Lorton Penitentiary. This is basically the Washington, D.C., penitentiary here. And this was left empty for decades. This is a very scary place. People live there. This is what it looked like. Now this is what it looks like now. You can work out in the leg of your own prison cell. So once we did all these, fancy federal properties, this is where I'm going to get to this project. So this is the Soldiers' Home. Just going to quick touch on this, and there is a theater on this campus. So we haven't done it yet because we had to do these buildings first, then we get to the theater. So anyway, so this is like the creme de la creme for projects that I've worked on. And it probably took about 20 years to figure out how to do something like this. And so many partners and nonprofits and government agencies were involved in seeing this, the Soldier Home be developed. This is in Milwaukee. This is like one of the most philosophically sound historic preservation projects one could work on. But this is one of the first 3 soldier homes commissioned, signed into legislation by Lincoln right at the end of the Civil War. Milwaukee was selected because the women of Milwaukee ended up raising funds that were sent to the federal government. And this building you're looking at right now is the rehabilitated Old Main that was constructed between 1867 and 1869. It was left empty in 1989. The roof started caving in 2010. Through lots of advocacy, an RFP was put out in 2016 that we responded to, and we rehabilitated this and 5 other buildings into 101 units of housing for veterans at risk of homelessness. So these are some of the original postcards. This is what this campus looked like. Lots of fun drawings and lithographs. This is some of the Soldier Home Fair that these funds were raised. So they were fundraising back then too for cool buildings. This is it before. Big dining areas that were all turned into community rooms. Here's a historic theater right here. Check this out. So this is the War Memorial Theater on this campus. This is the next set of buildings that will be redeveloped on this VA campus. This is what it looks like on the inside. The old picture of the theater. It's really hard to figure out a use for a theater on a VA medical campus, let me tell you. This is this amazing picture of a stained glass Ulysses S. Grant on a horse. This is a Tiffany window that was given by the troops of St. Louis as a gift to the VA in Milwaukee. This is part of the theater. Again, cool theater. The chapel. Anyway, back to this project that we just finished. Lots of different financing was involved to get the $44 million in order to redo it. So, but of the $44 million, if you had a $44 million theater, you could count on about $7 million in federal historic tax credit equity and $6.8 million in state of Wisconsin historic tax credit equity. That's kind of like, those are big numbers. So if you can figure out how to bring tax credits into your theater and put together a capital campaign, that's how you get these bad boys done. And then there's some complicated structures here. These are old historic American building survey drawings. groundbreaking, restoration, scaffolding, construction. Just show you the completed project. These are what these apartment units for veterans look like. Community rooms, history room. Old World War I recruitment posters put on loan from Wisconsin or from the Milwaukee County War Memorial. A lot of window restoration. We did all the slate roofs. We had one of the smaller buildings, the admin administration building. We restored the old post office within. Some of the officer quarter housing, printed housing. Donor boards. So if you're ever at a Brewer game, you can look over and see this. All right, theater time again. Al Ringel Theater. So because I worked at the National Trust, I would always get called by theater groups and, hey, how can you help out with my small nonprofit theater? So this was, you can see a $3 million redevelopment, and we already touched on a lot of it. Some of the historic and completed. This is what the tax structure looked like. So I got a call up, and I lined up a family that used to own Folgers Coffee and sold it to Procter & Gamble. They still owe a lot of taxes after all those years, and so they agreed to take these tax credits after making a phone call, and so they paid a certain dollar amount, and they're still partners within the Al Ringel Theater redevelopment. And the state of Wisconsin historic tax credits were involved too. American Family Insurance took those credits. So just on the tax credit calculation, you can see that you had $3.3 million in qualified rehabilitation expenditures. The credit's a 20% credit, and the federal credit was 85 cents, and the state tax credit was 92 cents. So it brought in $564,000 in federal tax credit equity, and around $616,000 in state tax credit equity on the Al Ringel. So then you can kind of see the source and use and the capital campaign that was required. So worked on this project in 2015 with them. Oh, there's a picture of me with the General Lee. Matt took that photograph. They were doing a fundraising event, and I used to watch this show a lot growing up as a kid, so I just wanted to throw this in there because it's awesome. Just let that soak in. All right, so then next we go to the West Bend Theater. I got a shout out on this one too. So I worked with these West Bend folks, and they are awesome. And when they had the opening, that was March 14th, 2020, and then like the lights went out, and I always felt so bad about this, you know. So I'm always rooting for the West Bend Theater, but $3.6 million project cost, restored. This is a really much more complicated source and use. But again, bringing in, the tax credit equity calculations, QREs actually were around 4.4 million. And then the tax credit equity net was 747,000 in federal tax credits, and then 633,000 in state historic tax credits. So again, it's worthwhile to try to figure out how to work with a nonprofit, bring in an investor partner, and on these theater deals, there's a lot of groups that go out and buy credits, like the big banks, Bank of America, and Chase, and PNC Bank. They would crush a small theater, group like yourself. So what you want to do is you want to find like the local bank, the insurance company, the rich guy in town, figure out if they got tax liability, and like what it would take for them to structure a deal with you where they take those tax credits. They don't underwrite the hell out of you, and you actually are able to get a deal done. A lot of these tax credit investors make everything way too freaking hard. So both the Al Ringling Theater and the West Penn Theater had really, really good partners that they brought in. So I think that's what I want to stress the most. There are ways for your organization to get into an LLC without messing up your property tax situation, and then you can, step in with a good, kind investor that will pay you top dollar for your credits, and they'll come and watch movies and concerts, and you should have a good relationship with them, and I can help you set that up. Some other nice feel-good projects. This was the Goodman Community Center. This was a project that used both federal historic and new market credits. And I ended up serving on this board. A lot of times when you help out these nonprofit groups, you get sucked into being a board member for 15 years. And so I was the vice president of the Goodman Community Center right up until this past year, and just had a nice dinner with them this week, and worked on this project. Because once you come up with this, you really confuse the hell out of them, and you're like, all right, you're a board member now for the next 15 years until all this shit unwinds. So really complicated structures. But so I want to mention something else. I don't want to have to give just the only way you can do your cool historic theater is buy historic tax credits. Sometimes this Madison Bratsworks building, we ended up getting it listed on the National Register, but we wanted to do too much of an addition, and our donors were like, you can go for the federal historic tax credit, but that's going to really affect this small lot. We got to maximize the space. So we ended up foregoing the tax credits. We did as best of a job as we could with the rehabilitation, but we went with a very sensitive contemporary new design as well. So, it doesn't always have to be tax credits if you want to do some kind of, modification that's not going to fit with the Secretary of Interior standards. But generally you can work around it. But this was a really small lot, and we needed to maximize it. But just wanted to show you this cool historic rehab before and after. And again, really complicated structure. I'm still going to be getting phone calls up about this one. But this one utilized a very complex new market tax credit structuring, even though we didn't utilize the historic credit. Anyway, you got time for more jokes? Did I go too fast? That's right about 3:30. So, any questions on anything? Yeah.
I've heard applying and getting the tax credits can be tricky and maybe a little complicated. What makes it so, and what makes it easier?
What makes it, let's see, having a good preservation consultant. There's a couple in the room right now that you're going to want to talk to. They can help you navigate through the do's and don'ts, what you can and can't do when it comes to windows and masonry, repair, all the little architectural, question marks that you might have. So get a preservation consultant to work with your architect. Get an accountant, to answer some of these questions. There's a handful of accountants that know this stuff inside and out. And then know that it's going to take a while, but it's worth it, if you can offset, if you could utilize the credit yourself, you're bringing in 40 cents, on every dollar you put in. And then when you syndicate them out, you take it at a discount, but it's still generally worth it to go through the headache, of it. But have the right team built up, and then also get a good attorney if you're going to bring in a partner. There's a handful of attorneys in the state that really know this stuff inside and out. If you get the wrong legal team, you could really gum up, a project good. Yeah. Oh, wait, this. Yeah, the SPO is never going to be a problem though. So.
Early consultation.
Yeah. Early consultation. There you go. Yeah.
What do you find is the difference between, say, a U.S. bank and a local investor for how much they will buy in how much is that?
Yeah, a U.S. bank, they're great. U.S. banks, I always recommend U.S. Bank to take the state credits. And so they're like a machine. They can roll through them. They always pay very well, even on small deal. But on the federal stuff, they're not going to be even interested unless there's $5 million or more in credits. So, bringing in like a local group, if you have $1 million, in credits or under. And so like kind of like what I got a little side business hustle going on too, where I work with these families that end up just taking the tax credits and having real simple underwriting and just minimal legal work, and they pay a little bit lower, but those are for credits that are generally like $1 million and under. And then, for like $1.3 million, that's, I don't know. There's probably about 10 buyers like out there that would buy that, but U.S. banks are generally interested in the larger federal historic purchases, and they'll over-lawyer you.
What's that, like 80 cents for a dollar credit, 85?
Yeah, it's generally like, let's say like around 82 cents right now because it's a 5-year credit. I look like Frank Lloyd Wright? Right.
What quote did you write that Wright said?
When his
Arrogant?
no. Okay, so like my favorite quote in that was, Wallace asks him, what if one of your students comes up to you and they have the fear of the general security, the bomb, whatever, it's like, what would you tell them, about being nervous about the future? And he goes, well, that's what I tell them every day. He goes, I don't put a line on the drawing board if the answer isn't theirs. And the answer is, and I believe Jesus said it, within yourself. That's where architecture lies. That's where humanity lies. It's there now. All we have to do is develop it. And so, I always thought, all right, well, I always thought that was spot on. So.
I saw that interview. There was something else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, he would talk about philosophically sound projects. And so that's why I like the Soldier Home. That's a philosophically sound project. And there's other nice projects that I've worked on, but that thing, I don't know if I'll ever be able to touch something, that had so many people behind it that wanted to see it get done from its inception 150 years ago to 150 years later to the completion of it now. So anyway, I think that quote always kind of stuck in my head. So.
what year was that interview?
What?
What year was that interview?
I believe it was 57. Yeah, it was a 2-part interview. Anyway.
Black.
Yeah, it's black and white. You can find it online. So, anyway. Any other questions? Oh yeah. Yeah, it'll stay at theater. We did a study. I worked out some numbers it was a study that Milwaukee Preservation Alliance, and a lot of them are here. And so we worked with some architects, contractors, and we broke out what the rehabilitation cost was and a financing mechanism, how it would work. And we've identified a nonprofit that would be able to tackle something like that, and we presented it, or they presented it to the Department of Veterans Affairs. So that was done this spring. So I was a part of that. That one will take a little bit though in order to get that plan together. So, but it'll happen. All right. Anybody else? Oh, grass camp?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't have grass camp, but I went through that program. So, yeah, 21 years ago. So, yeah. All right.
Thank you.